Well, John, welcome to the FMCG Insider. How are you today?
I'm really good. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Perfect. Well, I'm glad we could get together. So just for listeners to start off the discussion, could you tell us a bit about your career background and then fast forward through there to how you came to run Cafédirect?
Yeah, no, sure. Well, I started work a long, long time ago now, but I think my career was very much about getting into fast-moving consumer goods, and I wanted to start in marketing, and I wanted to work in kind of what I saw as a tier one provider. So I applied to people like Procter and Gamble and Unilever and Nestle and Mars, and started on Nestle's graduate training scheme. So, and then the career to me, I guess, has been really about learning and learning different ways of doing business and just trying to navigate your own kind of compass with that. So I've worked in many different food and drink businesses, some of them very, very large, some of them very, very small. And each time, I guess, I've been trying to learn about what I think is the best way of doing things. And that culminated 9 years ago with joining Cafédirect. And I think, Cafédirect were looking for somebody who could bring some of the disciplines and structure of a large, world-class FMCG business, but also could navigate the ambiguity and entrepreneurial pace of a small business. And I guess that's the kind of experience that I had and could demonstrate. So I think it's really helpful to be able to bring those different aspects to bear. And I guess it's about working out when to apply different bits to, help the business move forward.
Sure. Okay. I mean, just to get it out on the table, just before we start, then what's your relationship with caffeine like? Are you a quick metabolizer? Are you on it all the time, or do you sort of stop at a particular time of day, or how does it work for you?
Oh, I'm a huge caffeine fan, and I consume quite a little bit of it. I certainly start at the beginning of the day, um, after you've woken up and reached for the kettle, and but I do tend to stop about lunchtime, sort of 2 o'clock or something like that. So yeah, there's a little bit of discipline in there somewhere.
Jolly good. That sounds good. And tell us a bit about the history of Cafédirect. I mean, this is an organisation I've known for 20 years from the buying side and also the client side now. But I mean, for folks who haven't, heard all the nuances and how Cafédirect came to be, could you just give us a view of where the organisation came from? What was its genesis?
Yeah, I think that's why it's so special. Is it was born out of injustice. So there was a coffee price crisis in '89 when the US pulled out of an international agreement and the price fell through the floor. And four kind of social enterprise charitable organizations and three coffee farming communities came together to try and find a better, fairer way, and directly bringing coffee into the UK and then selling it in church halls and community centres before it got into grocery in '92. So I think that's what makes the purpose so well established and genuine and authentic. Is it started from trying to solve a problem, and then it spent the 30 years subsequently doing that. So it wasn't a business set up to make money. It wasn't about entrepreneurs, trying to find a niche in the market. It was about people genuinely trying to find a different way of making smallholder farmers' lives better.
And how does, I mean, you've been involved with Cafédirect and you've been aware of fair trade and the fair trade system beyond that, and there's also other standards. How do you feel that the different coffee companies and the different standards fit together? Is there still competition between those standards? Is there a sort of shared understanding? Is everybody on the same team, or how does that work?
Um, I think it's still difficult. The large majority of companies are trying to make money for themselves and maximize single primacy shareholder value, which means you don't want to spend lots of money on what you're buying. So the vast majority of businesses are buying commercial coffee without premiums and don't have business models really trying to reinvest in farmers. And it varies hugely. There's definitely a trend towards recognizing that you need to look after your supply chain and the farmers and the communities that build it for you. But still, I mean, I think fair trade is still, the minority of coffee in the UK. And I think fair trade is just, it's a certification that does a lot of good, but then going beyond that and really engaging and embedding your purpose and trying to make a difference is, there's momentum as there is in many markets, but still there's a hell of a long way to go. And, the amazing thing is if you can have an amazing cup of coffee, a really, delicious cup of coffee, and it's doing good, I don't think you can beat that, really.
Sure. I mean, it seems to me when I first was involved in the fair trade movement in the sort of the early noughties, really, that it was coming of age. It was very much a coming paradigm. One by one, the big produce categories fell into fairly traded. I was part of that at Tesco, and bananas and roses and coffees and tea. We launched the first own label fair trade range. Co-op had been at it for a while before us, but we did a huge range. Everybody copied Tesco, and therefore it went. But you've seen the last couple of years, it's like reversal, an unwinding of that as first bananas, the dam started to crack and the retailers didn't want to pay the premium for bananas. And then you've seen Nestle on Kit Kat, and you've seen that, I don't know, you've seen a bit of oomph, it seems to me, come out of fair trade. Well, why is that? Is that because grocery margins are just tighter, or are manufacturers and retailers saying, well, it's not as relevant? Or what's caused that slight sort of breakage in what seemed to be an ineluctable forward motion?
I guess I don't know the answer completely, but I think each of the different organizations that have chosen to change their relationship with fair trade are probably doing it for differing reasons. And, some of them are probably believing they can do it better themselves and then finding out the reality of it all and how difficult that is. I think others, as you're suggesting, are, looking at it through a very commercial lens and trying to save money. And, I think from fair trade's point of view, they've got to keep ratcheting up the standards of transparent accountability of changing, the lives of farmers and the landscapes in which they live. And it's certainly, there was a swathe of large corporates joining in the, as you say, the noughties. And now there's a few who are moving out. It's one aspect of being a better business is paying, a minimum price for your commodity that you're buying or whatever, and then paying a premium to empower the farmers to do great things and to make a difference. I think it's one aspect. I think, we as consumers need to hold to account the companies we buy from and see how transparent and traceable their supply chains are. And I think fair trade can help do that. I think it's, in a way, it's each organization to their own. I think in the end, you, like your relationship with people, I think you see how organizations behave and you see how they're owned and run. And I think, I think with technology, hopefully more and more of us can be more discerning about the choices we make. So.
Sure. No, I agree with that. Interesting. I mean, that's an interesting point, isn't it? I mean, I want to throw Brewdog in the mix, just because we're kind of going in that direction. So, yeah. Brewdog, incredibly successful, great beer. I've been known to partake. Really interesting. Did a lot of very edgy commentary because they can print a can quickly. They're always running out these sort of PR special editions. And then, was it 3 weeks ago, the wheels fell off. All these ex-employees write in and say, well, look, the culture is toxic. Some of the management decisions are toxic. It's this, it's that. And then I read last week that even their competitions are under scrutiny, where they're running a Willy Wonka, get a gold can type technique, and turns out it's made of brass. So there's disconnect between what they're saying it is and what there is. And of course, they're a B-Corp as well, which makes it even more problematic. And they've set their stall out to be the plucky underdog, with a new more kind of socially equitable paradigm. And then for all this to come out that there's a bit of sharp practice in advertising and the culture's not where it should be. How much of an issue is that sort of a disconnect for Brewdog? And can the existing management do anything about that? If you accept that they must have overseen, at very least, this kind of culture develop and embed itself.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting set of dynamics for them, isn't it? I think, as you say, they're joining the B-Corp movement at the same time as they're facing into some issues that are coming to light. I'd like to say I don't partake as much as you do, but certainly I don't work with B-Corp, not with B-Corp, with Brewdog. And I think with all these things, we all get things right and wrong all the time, don't we? I suppose it's always what you do next. So I am a little bit interested to see how the next chapter is navigated for them. But yeah, you've got to face into these issues and find your own way through them. I think it's just interesting that suddenly there's a run on all those things are happening at the same time, aren't they? So
yeah, no. It's when sorrows come, they come not as single soldiers, but as battalions.
yeah.
I'm reminded. No, very good. So, I mean, just dragging it back to Cafédirect and COVID, what's your working pattern in the office like, and how has the team coped with running, I guess, a virtual coffee business over what's been a very challenging 15 months?
Yeah, and I think you're right to say challenging. Although we feel like we've navigated it very well, it's been pretty challenging for everybody in lots of different ways. And I mean, we moved to be remote on the 17th of March 2020, which is a heck of a long time ago. And we've pretty much been remote throughout. And I think what's been interesting is that's helped us make some really good improvements. So I think the teams have worked very well together using technology. The frequency of communications been heightened. I'm very lucky. I'm working in an organization of 30 people. So each week I can pick up the phone to every employee and just check in and check how people are and make sure they know that I'm interested, engaged with them all. So, I think it's very different to running an organization of, say, a few 100,000 people. So we're quite fortunate that we've managed to do that. We managed to keep the communication going. We've added a bit of sociability and very much moved towards a more kind approach to things. I think we're very conscious of people's well-being. So we put in place a well-being program with a company called Better Space in January, which everybody's really engaged with and used and benefited from. So no, I think it's been really remarkable. The second point really is it's not just what the organization has done, it's the choice the employees have made to respond with such positivity and determination to make sure the business does well and use that as a focus in quite an uncertain set of circumstances. So in the whole, it's been quite remarkable. And we have a small roastery in London Fields in the East End of London, and we've kept that working because you've got to keep the manufacturing aspects of these businesses moving forward with a very a robust social distancing and testing regime. But everything has progressed really well, and I think we're very conscious that we need to move back to a balance of the different aspects of how you work. But we do think we've navigated it very well during the time we've had to.
So are you going to move back to a more sort of classical hybrid approach of X days in and Y days work from home? Is that how you feel the story will end?
Yeah, very, very much so. And it's interesting observing other companies and listening to their approaches. And I think that the discipline must be working out where you get the most value from the work you're doing. So there'll be some, collaborative and creative aspects which face to face will give you a exponential benefit. But then in my own personal way of looking at it, when I go into the office now and I'm doing work I could have done at a desk at home, it doesn't feel like a high value use of my time to go in the office. Whilst if I go in and you're doing some brainstorming and then some meetings with other people and some developmental work with people, it feels really important to be there. So I think watching other businesses, I think we need to get enough structure and discipline in it while still showing that we trust our employees to do the best they can wherever they happen to be.
Sure. No, amen to that. And what so looking beyond Cafédirect and looking to the broader space of social enterprise or not for profit, who do you admire? Who do you think's got the balance right as a business that's in commerce but yet has a different purpose and a different heartbeat?
Um, I mean, there were some phenomenal examples. I think yeah, Patagonia is an inspiration to us all in the way that they have created a phenomenally successful business that's really able to quite provocatively deliver on its purpose and to be quite challenging about that. I think there's a lot to admire in the approach that Tony Chocolonely from Holland has taken in its entry into the markets such as the UK and the way it delivers its purpose, but connects brilliantly with its consumers. I think, there are lots of good examples. I think getting the balance right is interesting. It's much more intellectually challenging than just going out and making a load of money. So it's there's much more tension in your priorities, and you've got to make sure you're running a good business, whilst you've also got to make sure you're delivering your purpose so that you're doing the good that you are there to do.
Sure. No, I get that. And how, I mean, because your career, as you told us, has spanned conventional sort of corporatist owned, slightly more entrepreneurial and social enterprise. If you were to tease out the sort of dominant thinking, I mean, does the profit motive change behavior? And if so, in what way? Because the profit motive is still there in social enterprises and in more kind of cooperative structures. It's just nuanced differently. How do you interpret that motive towards profit, and how does it differ across the various businesses you've worked in?
I've certainly felt over the time I've been in the sector that you have to be very careful that you don't lose track of the financial requirements of making some money. A lot of businesses with purpose are so in love with the purpose that they lose track of being a really outstanding business that still drives profitability as well as the purpose. So we've certainly worked hard to make sure that you decide where you're getting the most value and where you challenge, and also how you run the business to make it very operationally effective and efficient, really, I guess, because you're trying to do a lot of good, but to do that you actually have to be quite disciplined and almost ruthless in your business management. It's definitely not either or. It's definitely navigating the two well together. And there've been times in this company's history and in other companies' histories where you're not delivering profitability consistently, you're losing money, and I think you have to be able to do that while still delivering the maximum impact and optimally against your mission. So I think you need to still recognize you need to be the best business out there competing with your competitors.
Sure. And another thing that interests me, a pet project of mine, is looking at corporate structures, and structures for medium and small sized businesses are really interesting. There's a lot of thinking around horizontal structures, more matrix, flatter structures. Have you noticed a difference in the way that sort of culturally a not-for-profit works versus a sort of traditional corporate or owner-managed business? Does the structure differ, and how does that play out? Or are they all effectively the same structures, but the purpose is the differentiator that flows through the organization?
I mean, I think you've got to have good governance and structure behind the purpose. So as an SME, we're very well governed. We have two main board directors are smallholder farmers, so you've got very visible and strategically accountable engagement of your mission. We have a guardian share that is like a blocking share, and we have a governance structure called the Guardian Share Company, which looks after delivering the purpose in everything we do. So there's quite a good structure there for maintaining the standards and delivering the purpose. I think we then have a third component, which is called a gold standard, which is a framework for delivering our triple bottom line, our social, environmental, and financial impact. And that brings the purpose to life for all the employees in the way that's very visible, and it then drives your objectives and deliverables. So I think the answer to your question is you've really got to structure it probably as heavily as a traditional corporate, but you need to bring to life the components that deliver your mission, and that way it's all cemented in, and it actually makes the job much more easy is the wrong word. It makes it much better oil just to keep delivering on the purpose, because it's all so visible and so structured.
I mean, one of the criticisms that over the years that folk have noticed is that particularly with charity, and perhaps less so in this commercial space, but there's been the speed of decision making and the size of the hierarchy. They've been purpose driven, but very old school in their structure. So, I mean, do you accept that there's a critique that says there's a trade-off between being agile, being a couple of entrepreneurs out, operating in a coffee roastery in, not far from you, say, who can basically decide something in the morning and do it at lunchtime, and that accountability, that responsibility, that engagement of stakeholders, staffs, raw material suppliers, end producers, does doing the right thing slow you down and make you less agile, and what do you lose because of that?
My short answer is no, it doesn't. I mean, we're one of the fastest, most entrepreneurial businesses in the market. I think, I mean, I think, we have a board of directors who, have oversight on the strategy and the delivery of the mission. But we have a team of 30 people, and those people are encouraged to get out there and make decisions and be brave and courageous and dynamic, and that we have a culture that's mistakes are fine. It's always what you do next, and I think we've tried to bring innovations to market faster than anybody else can. We certainly try to be very, very decisive. I think you've got to understand the risk and the consequences of your decision making, but you've also got to be speed is a competitive advantage, and we're very keen to be very fast. So I think clearly, if you get yourself bogged down in hierarchy and structure and some of those things that you look to bigger businesses and think, oh, that's the thing to have, you do lose your competitive advantage, because small businesses are more agile. In COVID, we were determined to be very agile. We were determined to carry stock when other people were struggling to get product. We were determined to advertise ahead of the curve so that we could build our business in challenging times when other people are trying to work out what to do next. So I think it's so important that you don't lose that, because the last thing you want to do is be a small business competing with lots of better structured and resourced business without that agile ability to move faster than other people can think. So no, it's key to maintain that.
Sure. And from a people perspective, and I'm thinking particularly of attracting people in and retaining talent once you've got them in. Yeah. Purpose, I think the assumption would be purpose helps be that gel that makes people more sticky. But is there also a cohort of younger employees, millennials and below, that are coming onto the market now that want that more entrepreneurial, the bigger rewards? So how does purpose play out for recruitment and retention for you? Are you able to use it to get access to talent that you might not ordinarily get access to?
Yeah, I think I've been amazed. I've been doing this for 9 years. I've been amazed how much momentum there is behind a generation of people who are going, there's more to life than just making money. And I think the purpose is a great it's a great way of attracting people, but it's an incredible way of giving people meaning in every day they work. And when you believe in something and you can tangibly see the difference you're making, whatever the day might be like in terms of the issues you're facing, you face them with incredible positivity. And I think yeah, no, I mean, it's doing us proud in terms of recruitment, and in terms of just making work a really positive and progressive activity effectively, which leads to retention, doesn't it? I think yeah, no, and things like being part of the B-Corp movement and other kind of agents of change, it all fits together so that we all feel like we're making a big difference, and that's great for attracting people and retaining them. I think you've still got to make sure that your all your structures and all your other hygiene aspects are right, but no, I mean, it makes a huge difference.
Sure. Okay. And then thinking back to your younger self, 9 years ago, what advice would you give an incoming CEO of a not-for-profit, a social enterprise in this FMCG space? Can you pull out a couple of pieces of wisdom that you've accumulated over the last 9 years and give it to that person?
Advice to your younger self, effectively. Yeah, I mean, it comes back to some of the points I think we've been touching on earlier, Hamish, in terms of this is business. I mean, although I think a lot of people come into the sector attracted by the purpose and almost by the charitable status if they're not careful. I think you're still here to make a really successful, well-run business. I think certainly when I talk to entrepreneurs starting out on the social enterprise journey and so on and so forth, it's very much you still need to be very market orientated. You still need to be very clear on your proposition and how you position that against your target audience, and you still need to really aspire to be the best in the market you can in a market orientated way, but make sure that you still are true to the purpose and that you've got the structure to deliver the purpose in everything you do. So I think you still need to make a very strong business. I think that's the error a lot of us make, is wanting to do good but not recognizing that there's a imperfect market where you're up against some really brilliant and strong competitors, and you need to be able to outmaneuver those as well.
So one last question then, going back to Cafédirect, what can we expect from Cafédirect? What can we expect from the coffee market in the next 12, 18 months?
Well, I mean, I suppose working back in from the coffee market has been incredibly progressive for probably 40 years. It's had so many reincarnations and has marched on relentlessly. And I think I think that the coffee market will continue to do that. I think for Cafédirect and for businesses in purpose in this space, I think it's a very exciting time. I think there's no doubt across the world. I mean, the pandemic has been absolutely dreadful and awful and tragic in many respects, but I think it gives us all a point in time where we can reflect on what really matters to ourselves, and then change our behavior and make sure that what we do as individuals is making a difference. And I think that means it's a very exciting background for businesses with purpose. And I think aligned to that, I really think we need to very quickly get on to accelerating the work on climate change. So I think we all need to recognize that blending social justice and climate justice together is going to give us a lot of strength in fighting climate change, which is a big challenge. I think for Cafédirect, we are going to build on our confidence, maintain our humility, but increasingly want to be confident and wave the flag for doing things the way we think it's right to do.
Sure, perfect. John, thank you so much for your time this morning. I've really enjoyed that little tour de force, particularly the parts around the coffee market and around kind of social enterprises and what makes them tick, what it's like on the inside. That's absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Hamish.
So thanks for listening to the FMCG Insider podcast. Make sure you don't miss our next installment of the FMCG Insider. Until next time, goodbye.